How's it going, fellow Endless out there? Welcome to my Netflix's The Sandman Official Trailer Breakdown. Now, I'm a little bit late to this. I'm playing catch up with all of the Comic-Con stuff this week, but it's kind of a good thing at the same time because we've got even more teasers of clips of scenes from The Sandman with Death, Lucifer, so I'm going to be chucking that in this video as well. But mainly, this video is going to be a huge breakdown of all the details, the things you may have missed from the official Sandman trailer and other teasers alike. So whether you're a new fan and you're wondering what's going on here, this is the video for you. Or if you're an old fan as well and you're a bit rusty and wondering how things could go in this adaptation, well, this video is for you as well. Of course, guys, expect a full series review. It's releasing August 5th, so don't miss out on that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And hey, if you do go on to enjoy this breakdown, do me one favor, hit the like button. It really does help me out and can get some fellow Endless in here to talk about it down in the comments below. So the very first shot picks up with Morpheus using his pouch of sand. Now, I'll probably be referring to Dream / Morpheus back and forth with both names, so don't get confused there if you're not so familiar with the Sandman. It's the same person. If you didn't know already, just for those of you who really aren't in the loop at all, due to being imprisoned for many years since 1916 by the Order of Ancient Mysteries, over those many years, his totems of power, which consist of his helm, his ruby, pouch of sand, all of which we'll be getting to in this trailer, were basically gotten rid of over time. And he more or less embarks on quite a bit of a quest to get them back after escaping, of which has been featured in multiple trailers, but is such a gorgeous shot ripped straight out the pages of the comics, just flipped, if you will. And speaking of his escape from his imprisonment, he's also aided by the three witches that we see in this trailer as well, or known as the Kindly Ones. Now, as detailed by Neil Gaiman, we meet them in episode 2, the Maiden, the Mother, and the Crone. And that part featured in this trailer is a part of their initial appearance, and then they're going to visually separate and become 3 and have a conversation with Morpheus about where his lost things are, meaning his totems of power. And speaking of the Order of Ancient Mysteries imprisoning Dream himself, we do get various points in the trailer scattered all over, very quick glimpses of Dream being summoned by them, of which Charles Dance is playing Roderick Burgess. And oh man, there's so many things you'll probably see me gush over in this trailer, and some of those is the casting, and I really think he is spot on. They're essentially trying to summon Death, if you didn't know already, but end up getting her sibling instead, and the story goes from there. And speaking of those production stills I mentioned right at the beginning, here we have a still of Ethel Cripps, who is Roderick Burgess's mistress, played by Jolie Richardson. But back to the pouch of sand clip right at the beginning of the trailer. I believe this is at the point of, well, this is kind of obvious, where he's first recovered it, as we see in the pages of the comics, and he uses this to then transport himself to hell and then approach Lucifer, inquiring about his missing helmet. That's when we hear Morpheus / Dream himself say, "Your waking world is shaped by dreams. Dreams and nightmares that I create, and which I must control." Now, we've talked about Tom Sturridge playing Dream quite a lot on the channel. I've always been a big, follower of that and a supporter, and I love his voice. There's something that has such gravitas to it, so to speak. It's somewhat chilling yet endearing at the same time. It's just so powerful, as you would expect with the kind of sullen Morpheus-esque kind of voice, and I just really love it. Now, over Dream saying those words we just detailed, we see quick clips of him entering hell, where we can actually see a quick peek at the demon Squatterblode, of whom is a guardian of the gates of hell. And I just love the detail that's put in here. I mean, the production, again, trying to refrain from gushing so much, but if you couldn't tell already, the visuals in this trailer are amazing. And as Morpheus is going towards Squatterblode here, we can see just these limbs coming out of the wall. And as Neil Gaiman says about hell, being made up of people. People is hell. Speaking of hell as well, we do get a nice shot. This is one that's been featured in many of the teasers so far as well, of Dream standing in the middle with his helm at this point. So this will be after the hell storyline with regards to getting his helm back, and he's looking over the landscape of hell. Now up next, we get a very quick peek at this adaptation's version of The Threshold, which is where one of Dream's siblings, one of the Endless, Desire, lives. Speaking of Desire, we do actually get various glimpses later on in the trailer trailer as well that you're seeing on screen. And this is where we get into one of my most anticipated aspects of the Sandman, and that is when Dream says those words in particular that we read out earlier of dreams and nightmares that I create, and which I must control, which is then when we cut to the Corinthian played by Boyd Holbrook. Let's just say, for now, he's one of Dream's creations, a nightmare who's been having a bit too much fun in the real world in his master's absence. His absence being the many, many, many years since 1916 that he spent imprisoned by the Order of Ancient Mysteries. And being in the living world, the waking world, if you will, as a nightmare, as one of Dream's creations, isn't exactly what Dream's creations are allowed to do, let alone a living nightmare of that of the Corinthian. And as we hear in the various shots of the trailer after this, the Corinthian says he's out there looking for me, isn't he? He knows that his master is coming, and he's getting a little bit confident. Now, the Corinthian has literal teeth for eyes. I was hoping we'd get a peek at this before the series dropped in this trailer, and we did. And as Neil Gaiman said, the Corinthian is a nightmare who does not have eyes, who is forever seeking the eyes of others, eating them, using his own eye mouths, and seeking what they see and experiencing what they experience. Boyd Holbrook, scariest man in the world. And to give a little bit more of a teasers without giving much more away, he essentially enjoys going around serial killing in the real world and has inspired actually many in the real world to do the same. So let's just say he's got carried away this whole time and will do anything to not go back to the realm of the dreaming. I'm very happy that Boyd Holbrook, as I've kind of briefly mentioned, is playing him because he's a very, very good actor and I think suited perfectly to this role. This trailer also gives us a brief glimpse of the Corinthian with the Boogeyman, played by Louis Reeves, who likely appears at the serial convention, which is basically, for those who aren't familiar, an actual convention for serial killers, believe it or not. He is also a serial killer, as you may have guessed, donning the name of that of the Boogeyman. But then Lucien the librarian, as we hear in the trailer, more or less hammers down the situation with the Corinthian we'll see in this first season by saying, nightmares do not belong in the waking world. This is then matched by Morpheus himself by saying, my creations do not walk amongst the living, killing mortals for pleasure, of which we then hear the Corinthians say, with the way the trailer was cut at least, oh, you don't think dreams can die? Let's find out. Now, this shot in particular with the Corinthian in the trailer really intrigues me because it looks as though he's being merged into being, but at the same time, I'm wondering if this is actually being played in reverse, perhaps, and this is actually Dream unmaking him, since as you can probably tell, the Corinthian is challenging Dream and doesn't exactly want to go back to the realm of the dreaming, even saying that I'm not going to stop until I've reshaped this world. But at the same time, we do see the Corinthian in production stills from episode 1, so it would be pretty cool if we saw the creation of the Corinthian. But either way, another praise to the effects here because it just looks really, really awesome. They've spent quite a bit of money on this. But that's not the only things that have happened so far, because as we've seen across various teasers and trailers, in Morpheus's absence, his realm of the dreaming has been decaying. Speaking of the decaying version of the realm, we do also see it in its full glory, and it looks absolutely magnificent. We do see darted around the trailer as well, just various other aspects of the dreaming in its full scope and scale, such as the gates of ivory that you're seeing on screen right now, and even outside the dreaming, just other parts that they feature in the trailer of various kind of trippy locations. It just looks fantastic. Now, in terms of rebuilding the dreaming, Morpheus will have to go and get his full strength back, and I believe we even get teasers of the dreaming being reconstructed with Morpheus's power back at hand. But this is where we hear Morpheus say that he needs Johanna Constantine's help. If dreams disappeared, then so will humanity. Before anyone says it, Boba is Constantine. Actually, it's Constantine. That is the way the name is intended to say. That is the way Neil Gaiman says it. So, Johanna Constantine, played by Jenna Coleman. Now, to give you a little bit of a tease, don't worry, I don't want to get into massive spoilers, but just to kind of get you a little bit in the know, Johanna Constantine is actually who Dream goes to when he embarks on that quest we talked about earlier in getting his totems of power back, beginning with the Pouch of Sand. You may have noticed that in the source material that this is John Constantine. But the interesting thing in this adaptation is that they switched it up to Jenna Coleman's Johanna and Johanna. Now let's get into this. I have talked about this in previous videos before, but just in case there's new people wondering like, oh, what's going on here? There is an explanation, trust me. Now, Neil Gaiman did say that the right situation with John is certainly circumscribed right now, but the plan to have Lady Johanna and Joanna be in the story, played by the same person, was there from the start. It seemed tidier, so it worked out. And we know that Bad Robot Productions, in a deal with Warner Brothers and J.J. Abrams, are developing a new live-action HBO Max Constantine series. So this likely had a bit of a factor into this decision, and it kind of lines up with what Gaiman was saying with regards to the right situation being circumscribed with John right now. So Neil Gaiman is indeed correct in where he says the plan to have Lady Johanna and Joanna be in the story and played by the same person was there from the start, as they are two characters in this show in two different time periods. It's just that the modern day Joanna, played by Jenna Coleman, who's also playing the Lady Johanna, is also filling in for the John Constantine role in present day. It was just kind of a situation of, we may as well do that if we can, since the rights thing with John Constantine are, circumscribed right now. But either way, back to the breakdown of the narrative and the way this trailer is unfolding here with Constantine. She says in response to Morpheus that she can do without dreams for a while. She hasn't had a decent night's sleep in ages, which is when we then get a few teasers of some Constantine moments, such as this moment where you can actually see Jenna Coleman's Joanna in the background performing an exorcism, and you can see a freaking demon coming out of within someone, which again, it looks quite impressive, and I am looking forward to seeing some Constantine action here. Now, as Neil Gaiman said, this is all in episode 3, Dream a Little Dream of Me, and even some of the other Constantine stuff, it just looks like they've poured a bunch of action and really cool dark arts kind of stuff there. Up next, this is where we see a little bit of a glimpse of Rose Walker in the trailer, of whom we've also had a production still of before with Morpheus. Now, I believe this is her with her younger brother Jed after tracking him down. Now, her story is quite weaved into that of a lot of the plot of the Sandman, and she's quite an important character when it comes to even other characters such as the Corinthian, and even that of the Dreaming itself. We also get glimpses of stills of her grandmother, Unity, with Lucien, who plays quite the role as well, but that's all I really want to get into with that. Again, I'm not here to spoil the whole show, but then again, adaptations, as I always say, aren't copy and paste, so I do expect some innovation here. This is where the trailer shows one of my most anticipated stories in the show, and that is of the 24-hour diner with Dr. Destiny, played by none other than David Thewlis. You may have seen him before in things like, the first thing that comes to my head is Professor Lupin in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and I think he is a brilliant casting for John Dee, aka Dr. Destiny. Let's just say here as well, Dream's journey to get back his totems of power bring him to John Dee, of whom has Dream's ruby, of which you can evidently see him clinging onto in the trailer. And as you can probably tell from the trailer, and if you know a little bit about the character, the ruby grants John Dee immense power, and somewhat is what paves the road for not only his character of Dr. Destiny, but even his look as Dr. Destiny. And it's essentially like the Ring and Gollum from Lord of the Rings. It has quite a toll on him that, as I just said, it kind of gives him that, Ring to Gollum, like, decrepit look over time, which I'm wondering how they're going to adapt in this. Are they going to wait until the ruby's recovered, and without it, he just looks like a little shriveled Gollum Dr. Destiny? Or is it going to be what is really underneath and revealed? But also, this ruby makes him extremely formidable and cause quite a lot of damage, and where we see that Dr. Destiny is using the ruby to destroy the Palace of Dreams. Now let's talk about Lucifer Morningstar. So here we hear a line from Lucifer Morningstar, played by Gwendoline Christie, saying, "Tell us, what power have dreams in hell?" And this line from Lucifer has one of the most fantastic responses from Morpheus, and I can't wait to see that unfold on screen. I'm not even going to bother saying it, but I'm sure maybe people will be talking about it in the comments. And notice how, as per the source material, Lucifer refers to themselves as us. And to briefly go over this for the 100th time, just for the sake of anyone who's brand new here, because the amount of comments you get saying, Lucifer's a woman, genders have no genders, angels have no genders. Now, recently, in the latest issue of Empire, Gwendoline Christie actually spoke on how her portrayal of Lucifer isn't technically gender swapping the characters by saying, Neil clarified that Lucifer is a fallen angel, and that an angel doesn't have a gender at all, and I can play androgynous. We know that from Game of Thrones due to the way I look, so I hope that has helped in the portrayal of the character. And another comment from Neil Gaiman in a very recent video interview from Variety. He said, this will be the third place in where people say, did you gender swap this character? And I say, of course not. The original Lucifer didn't have a gender. So, merely getting them played by a human actor is technically gender swapping them either way. What we wanted was the quality the Lucifer in the comics has, an androgyny based around early David Bowie. Bowie when he was a curly-haired folk singer with a perm. We wanted somebody imposing who you would actually believe could intimidate Morpheus. And she does it by just being incredibly sweet, and you are always certain that she is far and away the most dangerous person on the screen at any point. Regardless though, going back to Dream's quest on getting his totems of power back, that takes him to Hell, as we went over earlier, to retrieve his helm. Now, very recently, we've been getting large portions of scenes released, of which I teased right at the beginning of the video, and it's kind of a good thing I waited till now almost, because I can somewhat give a bit more context here. One in where Dream does indeed go to Hell to retrieve his helm and meets with Lucifer, saying, yeah, well, my helmet's down here, so, can he give it back? On top of this as well, going back to the stills of production, we have a few stills of Lucifer featured from the Hope in Hell story, but once again though, this just looks incredible to me. I'm a big fan of a lot of the environments, as you could probably tell by now, and Hell looks like a really sweet adaptation here with all of the demons in the pit below. But in this teaser as well, it gives us a good look at Mazikeen, which is fantastic, albeit the Lucifer show that went to Netflix eventually had quite of a different adaptation of things. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that of Mazikeen. And we also see the demon who has Morpheus's helm. And I always struggle to say this name. Is it like Coronzon or Tronzon? Cronzon? I don't know, but either way, that demon, he has the helmet. And the other scene that we had released, on top of which I compare with the death stuff we get in this official trailer, is of course of that of where Morpheus accompanies his big sister, Death, as in Death herself. This will be going along the story of that of the Sandman known as the Sound of Her Wings, in where Morpheus more or less has a little bit of a catch-up with his big sister, and we get a good peek into the character, giving quite a bit of a pep talk to her brother at the same time, and showing her kind-hearted nature as she performs her duty as Death, of which this particular scene that was released highlights very, very well. And as we hear her say in the trailer, I thought about giving up, but I have a job to do, and we see her visit people in the official trailer who are to be taken to what lies beyond death, if you will. And Neil Gaiman said to Variety that Death is somebody who can speak truth to him. She can tell him what's going on. So what's interesting here is we took the Death dialogue from the original comic, but we also went into a short story that I'd written called Winter's Tale, which was illustrated by the astonishing Jeffrey Catherine Jones. And so Death gets to talk not only about being current joyous Death who understood what they did, but also she gets to talk about what it was like when she had to come to terms with that. When I was writing the comic, I wanted a Death who would be there at the end, who would turn to me and say, you should really look both ways before you cross that street, but who would do it with kindness, somebody who would be nice to me. There have been a lot of literary deaths. They are scary, they are imposing, some of them are skeletal, some of them are gold. I thought, I want to make a Death who's there at the end just to say hi. So that was the Death that I created. Somebody nice, and Kirby pulls that off so well. Up next in the trailer, we get a look at Cain and Gregory the Gargoyle, as in also Cain and Abel, who will be helping Dream a little bit early on when he escapes that imprisonment in the first episode, of which Gregory the Gargoyle will likely play a role in too, as when he returns, he is very weak. I am looking forward to seeing them adapt the somewhat dark humor of that of Cain and Abel, and the killing of Abel over and over again, since he doesn't exactly stay dead for very long. But Neil Gaiman said to Variety, just for some additional additional bonus info here, I stole a lot of things when I was building the Sandman. The idea that Cain and Abel, essentially the caretakers of the houses of secrets and mystery, were the same Cain and Abel who had murdered each other in the Bible, that wasn't me. That was Alan Moore in an ancient issue of Swamp Thing. And I loved that idea. I loved the idea that these are entities who live in dreams and look after stories. And I lifted that completely and then just built on it over the 75 issues of Sandman. Now let's talk about the Gregory thing in this trailer, because it kind of has me worried. Now this Gargoyle is quite significant to Cain as he owns him. And once again, by the way, I love the design of Gregory. Gregory just looks so freaking cute, but like also just really decent. Onto the somewhat worrying thing in the trailer. I've got a feeling that what we're seeing on screen right now could be Dream taking Gregory's life, so to speak. And I say that because we see tears in Morpheus's eyes as he seems to be drawing energy and life from Gregory, perhaps to boost him up for the episodes ahead, somewhat soaking up some of the dream energy on just a temporary basis. Now don't get me wrong, I have a theory that, and as I always say, adaptations aren't copy and paste, so like what would happen is he would resurrect / remake Gregory the Gargoyle again when he's at full strength. But already this little glimpse just kind of breaks my heart. You can clearly see Morpheus tearing up, almost crying, as he's whammying him. Pair this moment with Cain hugging Gregory as though he's saying goodbye. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but the very one where Dream is tearing up and you can almost see like Gregory is like dissolving from behind as he's almost like just letting it happen. Ah. Don't do this to me if that happens. I mean, I know he's going to be fine in the end, most likely, but it still looks very sad. Up next, we get a good look at Lucy and the Librarian with Merv Pumpkinhead, who is the janitor of the dreaming, if you will. And if you didn't know this already, Merv is being voiced by none other than Mark Hamill. I can already tell that Merv's personality will just be brought to fruition so well and just so brilliantly by Mark Hamill, so looking forward to that one. And then we get a little bit of a teaser from the Doll's House episodes as we see Hal here, played by John Cameron Mitchell. Now, as for some of these stills, they are super interesting and even feature some characters that weren't even featured in the trailer. Here we get another good look at Gilbert from other looks we've had in the past, also known as Fiddler's Green, played by Stephen Fry. Now, he is also one of Dream's creations, just like that of the Corinthian, except he's not exactly done what the Corinthian has done in the waking world. But yeah, he also left the dreaming when Dream was imprisoned by the Order of Ancient Mysteries, and he does come in quite helpful to a certain character in this first season from that of the source material, so it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. Now, up next in this still, we get a look at Lita and Hector Hall, of whom in the comics are the son and daughter of two very popular DC characters. Lita being the daughter of that of Wonder Woman, and Hector Hall, the son of Carter Hall and Shiera Hall, also known as Hawkman and Hawkgirl. Now again, with this, I'm super intrigued and fascinated as to how this story from The Sandman is going to be adapted, because I always say adaptations, as I mentioned earlier, aren't exactly copy and paste, so I do expect some differences even with the adaptation on Netflix, and it's quite sad as well with regards to their story, and I wonder what changes they just would have made bringing this to the screen, and if they'll bring about Hector's Sandman role as well. But again, I don't want to say too much about these two characters for the sake of spoilers. Up next is another production still of Dream and Hobgadling in what looks to be the 14th century, and will be adapting Men of Good Fortune. And let's just say that Hobgadling is a guy who doesn't want to die, and this turns into a bit of an interesting story of where it's somewhat of a bit of an experiment to Dream, in where it would be interesting to see how a human deals with immortality. And they somewhat agree to kind of have a meet-up for a drink every 100 years. Other various stills show Barbie with her boyfriend, and yes, his name is Ken. Another few stills show characters of that of Gary Fletcher, Marsh Janowski, and Bette Monroe, characters who will appear in the Dr. Destiny 24-hour diner episode, which is episode 5. But fellow Endless, I think I'm gonna leave the information dump off there, because already I think I've bombarded you with a bunch of Sandman details. So I really hope you enjoyed this video with regards to the details from the official trailer, getting into other parts from that of the clips of the scenes that were released last night, and everything else. So I would love to know your thoughts, whether you're an old Sandman fan and what you think and what your take is on various things that we discussed today in detail, or what your perspective is as a new fan. So yeah, I think I'm gonna love you and leave you now, guys. If you got to this part in the video, you know what I'm gonna say, and I'd really appreciate it if you did it. Hit the thumbs up button, the like button just below the video. It really does help out quite a lot. Do subscribe if you want to stay up to date with more the Sandman stuff, reviews, breakdowns when all of the episodes drop. Links to follow me are in the description down below, to Twitter and other places like that, such as my Discord server. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Endless in the next video. Goodbye.